So today we are going to be speaking with a good friend of yours.
Yes, her name is Katrina Bowers, and she's our first guest from the South. I'm not going to try to do the accent. I'm really bad at it. But she's from Athens, Georgia, and Liz, she's awesome. She's incredible. So she works now in philanthropy. She has her own philanthropy business called Guided Giving. But her story is so compelling. Like she started off in a career that you'd never realize would get to hear, but everything just sort of dovetails together. She started off in interior design, and then sort of through life events and courses and things that come in unexpectedly ends up in development at the University of Georgia. And then again, we get hit with a pandemic, and eventually ends up opening her own philanthropy company. Like she helps people figure out how to make the most impact with their money. And it's just, her story is fascinating. She's so open, and she's so willing to share. And she's experienced loss and grief. She lost her second husband very unexpectedly, and I just really believe that our listeners are going to get so much out of this conversation.
Michele, if she is a good friend of yours, I have no doubt she's going to be an amazing woman.
She's an amazing woman, and she leans into her faith, and she leans into friendship. And I think everybody really needs to hear this one, and we'll be really happy that they did.
I can't wait to hear Katrina's story.
Well, here we go. Let's meet her. Well, welcome everybody. Another episode of Spark Me. And today we're here with Katrina Bowers, who is our very first guest from the South, from Georgia.
Yay! Welcome, Katrina.
Thank you. And you will know that. I really didn't have to say it. In a few seconds, you're going to know that for yourself. But we're so excited to have Katrina because your story to me is just like a beautiful story of a life of pivots and like kind of rolling with it, and then ending up in this beautiful place that is really all about like connection to other people and giving and generosity and a lot of beautiful things that I can't wait to get to. So Katrina, let's start from the beginning. First of all, you and I know each other. We met at a conference after a session, and Katrina came up to me and said, "Would you like to go get a drink?" And I was like, "Yes, I would." And since then, we've just like kind of hit it off, and you're just one of those people who are just, you're so easy to get to know and get to love. I mean, that has to have followed you through your whole life. Or am I wrong?
You're sweet. Thank you. Well, I do think I have a gift for gravitating toward good people, and that has always served me well. And you look like someone that I wanted to emulate and get to know better, and to soak up a little bit of Michele. So thank you for sharing yourself with me. It was really a random meeting.
It was great. So Katrina, tell us a little bit. We always like to go back before we go forward. And, growing up in the South is so different than growing up in the Northeast, I think, I would imagine. So give us a little bit of like where you came from, and then take us into like what you thought you were going to do in life, and then like what happened from there. So it's kind of broad, but just give us a little piece of you.
Sure. Thank you. Um, I am born and raised in Georgia. Yes, I have a Southern accent. I have tried to lose it before, but it sticks around like a good friend, so I think I'll just let it stay. I grew up in Elberton, Georgia, a small town northeast of Athens, Georgia, where I currently live. It is the granite capital of the world. It's where your tombstone might come from one day. We had to literally take sandblasting and drafting in order to graduate from our comprehensive high school.
Wow.
So it was very much a town indigenous to the industry that it was built around.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of pressure actually to stay in the town and be successful as a draftswoman. I probably could have done really well, but that drafting class actually taught me that I did care about things, design, et cetera, and that'll play out later in life. But being so close to the University of Georgia, football is big in the South. It's part of our heritage, so to speak. And growing up, the University of Georgia was always an aspirational college for me to attend. And I was lucky enough to get some scholarships to go to the University of Georgia. And I thought I was either going to be a dancing teacher or a businesswoman in New York. Those were my two goals.
Similar.
I had been a dancer growing up, and I was either going to go to Broadway or be a businesswoman. Either way, I thought I was going to end up in New York. That was my plan. And applied to college, and I got some scholarships for the College of Home Economics because I had been active in the 4-H program growing up. So they weren't exactly in the business school, but so I could go to college for free if I went the home economics route. So I got the old-fashioned catalog out that we used to have back in the day and looked at the majors. And there was a consumer economics major that really was a personal finance degree.
Yeah.
We call it womb to tomb, planning from birth to death and all of the financial planning that goes along with that. It was a precursor to the certified financial planning certificate. And I thought, well, that's really what I wanted to do anyway. So I felt like it was a little God wink that was in my path. So I majored in consumer economics. Ended up following my boyfriend at the time, was 3 years older, graduated sooner. He had a corporate America career that was taking him to different states. And we got engaged, and I zipped through college in 2 years.
The
Yes.
University of Georgia.
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2 years.
Wow, that's
How-
crazy.
How did you do that?
I don't believe in having regrets in life, but that is the one and only regret I have, is that I rushed my college experience. I did it because I could. I had scholarship money back in the day. You paid, we were back on the quarter system, and 12 hours or more was the same cost. And so I could take 20 hours for the same cost as 12, so my scholarship money would go further. I was pretty good at juggling. I could take this one easy class that I didn't have to study a lot for, and then I'd take my hard classes, and it just mounted up. I went in the summers. I had a few credits coming in from high school. So I graduated in 2 years.
Wow.
That's great.
It was, it's great financially. It wasn't as great because we all know there's so much more to college than just the education. So the maturation process, and people didn't know what to do with me if I was in a club, usually the president was reserved for the senior. Well, here I am, a sophomore, applying, saying, well, I'll be graduated by this time next year, so let me run for this office. So all of those things were wonky, but it's okay. It was my path.
Yeah.
So I graduated in 2 years and married him, and we moved to different states, and I realized that I was going to need a job that I could never know. I'd be in one state, and we pick up and move to another state. And because of that early background in drafting, and because I had done some work right out of college, I had worked for a financial planner and then had also been a county extension agent. A lot of people don't know what that is.
No.
It's big in the South. It's the extension service is a county delivery system where they take research done at universities all over the nation and deploy it through a county delivery system. So if they're researching how to safely preserve fruits and vegetables, they research it at the university, and then they find a way to teach it and deliver it through a county delivery system.
Okay.
So I was one of those people that would receive the research and then teach the research into the community in which I was employed. Well, during that time, some interior design work, some handicap accessibility, some things in that space had allowed me the opportunity to teach in my community, and I really loved it. So in one of our stops along Corporate America Way, we had the opportunity for me to get my master's, and I got it in interior design.
Wow.
And I thought, I will enjoy doing this as we move around.
Right.
I was pregnant, getting my master's with my one and only child. And I thought, this is something I could do a little bit of or a lot of as we move around. And I made the conscientious decision to support my husband's career, and I would become the secondary wage earner at that point. So that worked for a while. And a few years went down the road and decided that I was going to need to get a divorce. Marriage didn't go the path that the dream thought it was going to go. So I wanted to move back near my mom, but I didn't want to go back to the small town of Elberton and become a drafts person, even though that's a wonderful career. It wasn't for me. So I made the decision to move back to Athens, Georgia, where I still live. That was an hour away from family, but a place that felt like home and a place that I might be successful.
Now, Katrina, just so I have a frame of reference, when you got married, were you around 20 years old or
Yes,
21?
I was 20.
You were 20. And then how old were you when you got divorced and moved to Athens?
Moved to Athens when I was about 31, divorced at 33.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it took a while to, just make sure the divorce was the right thing. And we had a little child involved, and So I was 33, and that feels so young, but at the time, I didn't know anybody else 33 and divorced. And so I went from being the secondary wage earner to, okay, I've really got to
Yeah.
be much more self-sustaining now. And interior design was a path, and it was serving me well. I had a position with a local carpet company that had an interior designer in-house, and I had earned that position, and it was salary plus commission. What I found that I didn't regulate very well on the commission part of things. If it was 5 o'clock and time to go home to my child
Yeah.
and a job came through the door, I leaned towards the job. I So commission work for me, I had a hard time regulating it and saying, this is enough. So I felt a real struggle between commission work and being a single parent of a young child.
Mm-hmm.
So his father was very involved. At the time, he worked 4 hours away, so he couldn't be involved on his day-to-day life. So it was really up to me to get him picked up from whatever
Sure.
in the afternoons. So there's a whole lot to women juggling. I think being single women and being able to tell their places of work that I really need, in order to be successful, I really need to be able to walk out here at this time. And I think sometimes we need to speak up more about the needs we have with our families at home, with our places of employment, so that we can be successful in both areas and not feel torn. And I had that.
I think it's so hard. I applaud anybody who is juggling motherhood with a career because they're they're both full-time jobs,
Yeah.
and there's so much involved with that. So, I mean, here you are at 33, you're in Athens, Georgia, first time probably living really as a single adult on your own. You have a little boy. Um,
And I just want to say, because I've gone through being the single mom as well, the world is not really set up for single moms, right? Like, and it's not right or wrong. It's just it just is, right? It's like your husband was 4 hours away, so really it felt like you didn't have even. Sometimes you're divorced, you still have that other person nearby or sharing, right? Like you're too far away to do any of the heavy lifting, right? So it's kind of like you have to work. But like anytime, like if you're married, anytime you say to your significant other, can you pick the kids up, or can you go here, or can you take them to that thing, or can you do this chore, or can you help with whatever? You can't say that, right? Like it's all you. You're doing all of those things and working, and it's like and and it's that's very difficult, especially when the world kind of there's an assumption that there's two, right? And that that it can be split this time. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But for whatever reason, I chose to be a single mom and adopt two kids. And sometimes it happens whatever way. But it's hard, is all I'm saying. It's like it's made a little harder because it's like work isn't set up for it. Like I just don't think life is necessarily in tune with the fact that you're doing it all.
I think too, sometimes, and I don't know that this would be the case in your case, but it's hard to ask for help too. Like I have friends who they may not be single parents, but for whatever reason, the other spouse can't help. And it's hard to ask your friends and say, hey, I don't have a pickup for my kid. Any chance she could, jump in your car and you could drop her home and then I'll be home. I mean, it's just
Or can you afford the help?
right.
Can you afford to get extra help? So all these
Exactly.
they're just things you have to, like you said, it's not necessarily like people get that. You kind of
Mhm.
have to make them aware or just work around it somehow. Right.
You know, I do think I did learn to ask for help. It is hard and it wasn't easy, but I had to have help. So I had to ask for it. And if I say what was focused on my son the best, then I asked for the help that I needed. And a lot of women don't do that. So that's one thing of all the mistakes I have made. That is something that I did do well, was ask for help. Find the other family in the neighborhood whose child's participating in what mine is, and I take them, you pick them up, whatever. I I really leaned into my community for the help that I needed, but I was always just staying focused on him and what was best for him. I did ask for help at work. Please, Please don't give me these opportunities after 5 o'clock because I so want to earn the money, yet I need to be disciplined to be a mom at this time. And all of that led to a former professor of mine who's a great networker. I was helping her with her home. She had had a home damaged by a flood, and I was helping her restore it. And out of the blue, she said, the College of Family and Consumer Sciences, which historically was the College of Home Economics, it had gone through a name change in 1990. She said, the College of Family and Consumer Sciences is looking for a senior director of development, and I think you ought to apply for that. And I said, well, what is that? Like, what does that do? And she said, I have no idea, but you'd be good at it. And at the time, it had insurance, the stability that interior design did not offer to me as a single mom. And I thought, well, let me check this out. And this is before the internet was just everywhere. People were barely having email addresses. I'm showing my age. And so we couldn't do the research to prepare for a job that we would now do. And I went into that job so unprepared for what it was. But bottom line, they offered me the job and I accepted it. And I grew through it and ended up having almost 30-year career with the University of Georgia as a fundraiser. That's what development, sometimes they call it advancement, but it's in fundraising.
Now, when you went into that interview with almost no idea what this job was, like, how did that go? Like, what?
It's embarrassing. I mean, I was interviewing with the dean, and they had the first ever at the college development director, and that young woman was great, but she had had a child and decided to stay home. So they did not have a long history. There was just a few of them at the University of Georgia at that point. And I really thought that I was going to network with companies and produce internships for students. And the dean said, well, that's a byproduct, but this is really about fundraising. And I said, oh, I can do that too. Well, sure. Let's do that too. And somehow I got the job. She was to give her credit, that dean at the time was very committed to hiring an alum or one of their own, because we could do a podcast another time about the evolution of home economics and the history that it has and what it is now, and the going from the old traditional to the new. And she really wanted somebody that could walk the walk and talk the talk. And I could. I had grown up in that program. So,
Because that's what you did for the 2 years you were at.
it is. Well, I was a graduate of the program. I was a graduate of home economics, but now I'll be working at the College of Family and Consumer Sciences.
Yes.
And, the economics of the home is really what it is, but it's not, I never even had a cooking class or any of those things,
Yeah.
but yet companies that you're looking to support, a college at a university still has antiquated views. And so there was a lot of marketing and brand identity that went with that profession.
Mhm.
And I loved it. It's where my heart still is. It's my people. I love it. And I worked there, learned so much. She allowed me to grow. The university was new at fundraising because at that point it was pretty much state supported with taxes. And we didn't need big contributions from alumni. The state gave us what we needed.
Yeah.
But like everything else, we evolved, and to reach the levels of excellence that we really needed to reach in certain areas, private giving made all the difference in the world, and people like me were charged with developing that program for our programs. So I stayed at the College of Family Consumer Sciences for a little less than 15 years, and then I had the opportunity to go to the Terry College of Business on campus. Polar opposites, predominantly female service-oriented occupations at the College of Family and Consumer Sciences, and now I'm thrown into a fundraising world where it's predominantly male, highly successful, lots of capacity, nationwide presence, international presence, and I was raising money for buildings to be built. So just totally different. I got to stretch professionally. My network changed dramatically and grew. And before you know it, I had the opportunity to retire during COVID. The university system offered a package that's rarely offered within university systems, like you have in private companies. But I had hit all of the marks, including 30 years of service, and it was financially incentivizing to retire. So I retired before I was ready to, was planning to, but it made sense to retire.
Gotcha.
So I retired.
So 30 years at the school. For a couple questions, is the consumer science still there?
Yep.
Okay, so it's still. And then when you went into the Terry School of Business, you said you're primarily doing new buildings. So you were raising money for buildings on campus. Is that?
We had the project at the time, and being an architect, Robert Stern had designed 6 buildings that were going to make up a new business learning community. And it was a $70 million project, and the state was going to match it with $70 million.
Yeah.
And this was back in early 2000s when we were doing this work, 2010-ish. We actually did the campaign from 2013 to 19 in 3 different phases. So my job in going up there was to give some leadership to developing the major gift campaign that would build those buildings.
Now, were you taught how to? Because I know, like, I don't ask for help well, and I don't ask for money. Like, it's like I don't mind working for money. I don't mind, but like when I have, even if it's something great for the community, if I have to go out and say, "Will you give money?" I like. It's scary to me. I love talking in front of people, but I hate asking for money. How did you hone that skill? Like,
Well, I don't ask for money.
there's
I
a
just
trick.
I don't ask for money. I help people make an impact at a place they love. And as I have supervised and mentored other fundraisers through the year, I'm like, go through the whole process and never say money. Don't use the word. It's not an important word to use. It's just really connecting a purse with passion. It's just connection. It's taking intention to impact. So that's not scary. And some people would say, oh, you're just doing sales. You're just a good salesman. I'm like, I'm not selling. I don't have to sell particularly an alum on their alma mater. They spent 4 years there. A lot of them say it's the best 4 years of their life. I just have to let them know about a need and help them see the impact that they can have in satisfying that need. And what I found more and more, I'm like, nobody's ever mad at me at work. Nobody gives away money and is unhappy about it. Nobody's ever mad at me. I never mess up.
Yeah.
Everybody's happy. I have these great relationships. Nobody's going to really talk about a financial investment at their institution without sharing very personally with you. So they have to trust you and you build relationship. So why would I not want a job like that? Nobody's ever mad at me. We're making a difference. People are happy as they can be when I'm helping them just align this impact that they just needed help navigating.
Yeah.
Do you find, I work with a lot of folks that are in development, and where I see the struggle is when they go from one institution to another institution to another institution. It's sort of like you had your passion for your alma mater, and that is where you invested and put in roots. And so sometimes I think that might have made it an easier ask because you had committed to there. Whereas other development folks, in order to move up in their career, have to move to other institutions. And how do they make that leap?
It is unfortunate that we do jump around in order to advance our careers. I had options of doing that and chose not to because I really cared about what I was raising money for. And I cared about the donor relationships. And on balance, it served me very well. I had the career I wanted. The people I got to work with is my greatest reward, along with the impact that I saw happen. So the truth is, if you're chasing the dollar, you might jump around a little bit. I think the satisfaction in staying far outweighs it. People rarely give their best gift the first time. So if I have a relationship with you, Michele, and you establish a scholarship, well, 3 or 4 years later, when you have had the joy from establishing that scholarship, you're likely going to do something else because it's fun. Let's keep having fun. And you're more likely to get excited and do it if you have that same relationship. We don't like our hairdressers to change, our doctors to change. It's a relationship building. So I think we should reward development people for staying in place. And as a profession, I think that's something we could work on.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, at this time, you're raising your son, right? And how are you was the university life a little bit easier for being a single mom in raising a son?
Were you
Were
still
they
single?
more accommodating?
I was single for a long time. And yes, university was a friendlier place. And the good thing I found about this profession that I just fell into was I was more in charge of my schedule. So, like, Liz, you might be a donor that lived in another state, and I might need to go see you 3 or 4 times a year, but I had flexibility around the Little League schedule, so I could be in town on Monday night and then fly out on Tuesday morning. So I had a lot of flexibility with my work, and that was very important. But I've never, ever had a boss at the University of Georgia that when I said I need to go dark for a family issue or my son's got a game and it's important that I be there, that there was any pushback. So
Wow.
I found a situation that very much was supportive.
That's wonderful. Speaks highly of the University of Georgia as a culture.
I don't know anybody who loves the university. I don't personally know anybody who loves the University of Georgia as much as Katrina.
Well, they've earned it. I mean, there is a reason to. So it's a great place to work.
Like I think if you're in the South, so the listeners don't know this, but today was scheduled around football. It's like-
Football is a religion.
They have a bye week this week.
That's exactly what it was. It's a bye week. It's a bye week this week, and those listening will know what that means. So we can go do other things. But last weekend, my house was full of people, and we were beating Ole Miss.
Yeah, right. Katrina was talking to one of my sisters about like all the Southern schools, and I got a real lesson in, Georgia Tech, Georgia, UGA, sorry, Auburn, like all the internet
And my takeaway, I both went to Auburn, so I understand the
my takeaway is UGA is the best. That's what I heard clearly.
Not biased at all. Come find out for yourself.
So then during COVID, you get this package that just makes sense to take. And again, you might not have seen that coming. Nobody saw the pandemic coming. Nobody saw all the impacts and things that unfold there. So if that wasn't necessarily what what you had seen before the pandemic, how do you respond to that? What happens next?
Girlfriends come and go out of your life, and a donor that I had worked with had retired, I thought, early from a big banking company where she worked. And I remember saying, Audrey, what are you going to do? Like, you're in your 50s and you're retiring. And she said that she was going to take a year to think, and that someone had empowered her to do that, that we're wired to think, okay, I'm going to stop this job and I'm going to have my plan. And, I might give myself a week to go to the beach, but then I'm going to hit the ground running with my chapter 2. And she said she was giving herself a year to think because you're too busy to think when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And so she was going to do, and she did that. And she ended up having a different career. So she had modeled that for me, and that was in the back of my head. So I gave myself the grace to not have it figured out when I retired. Not only did I retire, I was doing it within 3 months. And usually you give a longer ramp up, but that's just the terms of this agreement. So I had 3 months to really fast forward some campaigns and turn all these wonderful donor relationships, hand them off very gently to the right person. So it was no time for thinking. It was just trying to give appropriate service to the position that I had and leave it in good hands. So I took some time to think, and I hired a life coach. I'd had therapists before for things, and I knew about executive coaching, but I really wasn't even in a job at the moment. So I hired a life coach, and it was a female, and I told her that her job was to help me not to say yes to the first thing that came along, because I was wired that if something came along and I could be helpful, I would probably just do it.
Can I ask you just, how did you find the life coach?
On Instagram.
Where all good coaches live, for sure. Did you know anybody that used this life coach?
No,
That's interesting.
No. I actually just found her online. She was in another state. I thought I had been familiar with her name or something before, so I just clicked and I inquired, and it turns out she was actually at a very similar stage of life. She had been divorced and had gotten remarried, and I guess I should back up that along the way, I met a wonderful man when my son was in the 8th grade named Eddie, and he was just the perfect addition to our life, and we dated for 15 years.
Oh my God.
Wow.
There may be some wanting to make sure we get it right. And then we got married in 2019.
Okay.
And so we were just married for, a year and a half or so before this retirement thing happened. And so we had a plan that I was going to, that we were, he was a little younger than me, 4.5 years younger. And so I was going to do something. I was going to figure it out. And then he would work until he got to where he thought he was ready to retire. And then we would retire together and do retirement things. That was our plan. So I'm losing track of where I was going with this.
You had a
Life
life
coach.
coach. She was
Yes.
not in a life coach.
And she had also recently gotten remarried. So, and she had had one career and it had changed, and now she was doing a different career. So I felt like I could really relate to her. And so, and actually I'm still engaged with her. She really helped me that year and helped me focus on what I wanted to do. And I didn't know. Part of me thought I wanted to work at Target at Christmas and wish everyone Merry Christmas and see what everyone was buying. And part of me wanted to write a cookbook, and all that sounded fun, but I just kept coming back to philanthropy and development. I did not want to go raise money for an organization again. The grind of that, the administration process of that had gotten stale to me, but I just love philanthropy. So she helped me peel back the parts of my job that I really loved and the parts that I didn't love as much. And I started guided giving. So today I'm a philanthropy coach, and it's called Guided Giving. I'm a staff of one. I'm trying hard to keep it that way, although I may grow. And I have two sides to the business. One is I help nonprofits level up their fundraising game, just help them advance mission through doing better fundraising work. And then the other half is where I help people that have acquired some extra wealth, help them be very intentional about and strategic about how to make a difference and how to give their gifts away.
How did you come about that? Like what was the light that clicked? The moment you're like, this is what I want to do.
She helped me really realize that I loved working with donors, and I wanted to continue to work with donors. And this was a way I could work with donors, but I could not ask them for gifts without representing another organization, which I didn't want to do. So I think it was a compilation of all those years of being a development officer. I had sat on one side of the table and I had, shared the impact that the university needed and made a good case and all the reasons why this should feel good and happy. And the donors would say yes, and everything went well. But there was sometimes I could just see this little cartoon bubble coming out of the donor's head thinking, I wonder if my church is ever going to build that wing on the building that they've talked about, and if I really should save some money for that. Or I wonder if my 20-year-old, I just wish my 20-year-old had gone through this process, and I wonder if I would have waited a little longer until my adult children were old enough to be a part of this process. Or, I really wish I had done this while my dad was alive, and our dad could have seen me name a building. All of the thought. And so it dawned on me that philanthropy tends to be a reactive process, and I aspire for it to be more of a proactive process. And I aspire for it to be a time when we're doing our planning in our 20s that I want to have a job, and I want to drive this kind of car and have this kind of home and have 2.5 children, that you also say, and I also have a goal of setting up a scholarship, or I have a goal of eradicating homeless in my area. What are our philanthropic goals, and do we plan for those financially as well? And so being more proactive, and people wake up and let the nonprofits know, I care about what you do. What can you offer? What kind of partnership can you give me? And we can help each other here. Help me be generous. Help you advance this mission instead of waiting for that mission to come knock on your door.
Right.
I love that you majored in consumer economic planning, and 30 some years later, you're marrying
Absolutely.
planning, like that foundation to this new enterprise.
There
That's
was
so cool.
there was not a better major that I could have majored in. And again, I started off in wealth management, thought that's what I wanted to do. And corporate America, being married to husband number one, didn't allow for that. And then here I am working in it. And it made me I had a really strong background academically in estate planning. And so I noticed among my development peers, I I had a more ease working in the planned giving part of development, which is estate planning. Just familiar with it, wasn't scared of it, had done estate plans in college. And that's very much part of generosity, is learning what we're going to do with our ultimate gifts one day.
Right, right. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So you established guided giving, which people could find at guidedgiving.com. Is that right?
Guided-giving.com.
Okay. When did you establish this then?
Officially October of 2022.
So you retired from the college in 20.
January 21 is when I was official.
Okay. And you gave yourself that year.
Sure, I did.
Year plus.
I did.
And sought like, I like something I learned one time. You can't see the back of your own head, right? So I feel like going out and finding the life coach was just kind of having somebody who could help you work through all the stuff that kind of, it's good to speak, it's good to say, it's good to have another perspective. And from all those conversations, from everything that you pulled out of, it sounds like you had a realization that I want to work with donors, and I want to continue in the spirit of generosity and giving and the impact that I've seen it make. And I know I can keep doing that, but differently. I can help nonprofits and I can help individuals. And how's that been going?
It's been going well. I've been really blessed, and the helping on the other side, helping the nonprofits level up their fundraising game. At first, I wasn't very challenged by that, but now I'm finding lots of reward in it. If you can any of our jobs, especially when you've done it for 30 years, if you can take the highlights and pour into a younger or a newer person and watch them be successful, particularly when I'm working in this happy space of philanthropy, it is very rewarding. And I believe that nonprofits have the best mission statements in the world. I mean, they're curing cancer, they're developing leaders, they're saving whales. I mean, they just do the biggest things. I mean, compared to what some of us do in our jobs, they have the best mission statements, but they are always underfunded and understaffed. Always. It seems to be synonymous with being a nonprofit. We need to turn that narrative around. Nonprofits need to be a lot more robust, but currently that seems to be the status quo with so many. And so I just have this mission that if I can help connect a donor, whatever your passion is, if you can help advance that nonprofit, that's really the way we can change the world. Find that charitable partner. So helping these charitable partners maximize the opportunities to work with donors. And there are right ways and wrong ways. And there's 3 different areas of fundraising. There's lots of academics around this, and just helping flesh that out, because there's not a college degree for it. There should be.
Yeah.
There isn't. Maybe we should start that in our chapter 3. And so it's very rewarding. So it's going well, and I'm about 50%, about half the time working with nonprofits and about half the time working with donors.
And do you often connect them, or is
I thought that I would. That actually rarely happens, because it's so, if I work with Liz, just, the thing that might just really float her boat in terms of philanthropy may not be the nonprofit that I'm working with. And the donors I work with are all over the nation. Most of the nonprofits I work with are more in the Georgia area. Not quite. I have one actually international. So it's just not often, but there have been times.
Yeah.
The University of Georgia being one. Obviously, my network has led some of the donors from the University of Georgia. I've continued to work with some, and financial planners have given me referrals. And because of my background, the University of Georgia has been one that a lot of times I've been able to connect those two very strategically. And that gives me a lot of pleasure, because it's a personal passion of mine as well.
So you were living, so you're still living in Athens at this time, and Eddie's in Athens with you. So what's happening sort of in your personal life as you're taking off on this career?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Eddie, who 4.5 years younger, picture of health, outdoorsman, he developed a really rare blood disorder that we found out about in May of 2023. And they never really could quite diagnose it, but basically it's a miraculous thing when our body produces blood every 4 months. And if your body quits producing blood, it's a bad thing. And all that led to his passing in January of 24.
Wow.
And so right as the business was launching, he got sick, and we went through a few months. We thought we had years, but we went through a few months of, what is this? Oh, we need another doctor. Oh, this is something that's going to really be something to deal with for the rest of our life. Oh, this is an emergency. Oh, this is awful. So there was just all the emotions that go with that. So it was a hard time. So I lost him, and he was the love of my life, just the perfect addition. And you date someone 15 years. We were both divorced, and I think we both had our own sets of, trust issues, just wanting to make sure that this is the right person. And, can he blend into my life nicely? Can I blend into his life nicely? And, but I'm so grateful that he did propose. It was actually a shock after 15 years. And we never lived together. I mean, we had just really a traditional courtship for 15 years that I just treasure. And so we were married, but not long enough, just a little under 5 years when he passed away.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that part of your life? Because I know even when we met how highly you spoke of Eddie, and it was just this, like, you lit up talking about him, and it just seemed like this really magical friendship and relationship. So how did you navigate that, especially at the beginning of starting this business, and what got you through?
Well, we all just muddle through. I don't know that I have any secret sauce, but Eddie was my best friend. So, you lose your husband, you lose your best friend, you lose your companion. For me, it was two things. It was faith and friends. And I really leaned into my faith more than I ever have, and it truly sustained me. And I just don't say that lightly. If you don't have hope for what comes next, then the finality of death is scary and really awful. So leaned into my faith, then I leaned into my friends. I didn't have my best friend, but I had such a supportive group of girlfriends. And something I just have observed is, none of us want to lose our husbands. Those of us that are moms, we certainly never want to be childless once you've experienced having a child, once you've experienced the love of your life. But I know for a fact that I can be successful in life without a child. I mean, I did it before he was born. I can do it. I prefer to have a child. I have had times of being single, and I know that I can do life as a single person. But I have never had a time in my life when I could be successful without having girlfriends.
Amen. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say one's more important
No.
than the other. It's just
Something about it.
the girlfriends. And the other thing that's so interesting is the girlfriends' faces change. There's just always a girlfriend there when I need them. And we have to invest in those relationships in order to have those. You and I had to invest to stay in touch, and we became girlfriends along the way.
Yeah.
And, 10 years ago, the girlfriends I may have run to when Eddie passed away might be different than the girlfriends now. But I do have a girlfriend that is my best friend, and she just dropped everything and came for that week, and, just intuitively knew what to do and to help me get through the week of planning for the next steps. So all that being said, is faith and friends have truly sustained me. Although I will say that sometimes those of us that I know I'm a codependent, all of the things that go along with that, I worried about managing other people's grief too. His parents, wonderful family in Texas, are living and thriving, and the pressure I put on myself to help them through their grief was something I realize now I probably shouldn't have taken on. Everybody has their own process, and it's a time that I probably should, if I'm ever in that situation, similarly, is be selfish, do your own grief, and let everybody else grieve the way that they need to. And
When you say codependent, what does that mean to you in that in that scenario?
I've actually done some work on codependency. So the academic term is what it means to me now, and that's the inability to tolerate discomfort in others. And so seeing his family broken, I wanted so bad to fix it and I couldn't. And that hurt almost as much as my own grief. And so, grief is a complex thing.
Yeah, we've been talking about that recently, having lost parents, and it's just something you don't know how to navigate till you get there, and then you do your best, and definitely I think a theme of a thread here is leaning on friends and leaning on family to get you through those times, and leaning on faith, are all ways to cope with that, and that we all use in different ways,
And grief isn't just about death. I mean, there's grief in the divorce that I had.
Yeah.
There's grief if you don't achieve the pinnacle in your career that you had your heart set on. Grief. There's all kinds of grief that comes at us. If your child doesn't perform the way you think your child should perform, all of the ways that we experience grief. But grief through death is different, and they're all different. And for that navigation, friends and faith really, really were very important. And it's like, with the divorce, again, there was trust broken, whatever that looks like. But with a death, Eddie didn't break my trust. It's a sweeter grief. If I really believe that he's, with our Lord Jesus, then I have to lean towards he's experiencing utopia. He didn't hurt me in the process intentionally.
Yes.
So the grief is, I don't know, I can be more mature about it for lack of a better word. And I was prepared to do, because I've been single before. I was prepared. I do feel for women who aren't prepared to not have a husband. And the truth is, somebody's going to pass away sooner than the other one. We should always be prepared to be able to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
I tell women that all the time. Statistics show that women are going to outlive men.
Right.
Even if you have the happiest, longest marriage in the world, there's going to be a time when 90% of the women will be in charge of the family finances at some point in their life. So we need to be prepared for that.
Oh, that's really interesting.
I think that it's such a good point too, and I personally have fallen victim to this, where when you're in a relationship, you put that relationship above all your other relationships, and you let some of those friendships fall away because you're so focused on that relationship. And then when that relationship is gone and you're like looking around, you're like, oh gosh, I don't have the support that I thought I did because I didn't invest the time into that. And so for women, I do think, I'm sure it's true for men too, but I can only speak about my experience as a woman. Like, it's important not to put your spousal relationship like ahead of everything else, because at some point you may need those friendships.
Or if it's ahead, at least to continue to cultivate those friendships, which I believe you always
space for them.
Yeah, there's space for them, because you can, and it may be different. Like, a lot of friendships, a lot of good friends, you stay in touch. Like, I have text groups, right? So I'm constantly texting with a lot of my girlfriends, and we make concerted efforts to get together like several times a year. And you have to make those efforts. That's the thing. Like, you have to continue to cultivate those relationships and find the time to be together. Even if your husband very naturally is your best friend and the person who you put in front of everybody else, but that's not to put everybody else by the wayside, so that those relationships are there and healthy when you need them.
And I think it makes you more interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? I mean, because I don't know. This is just when I have been in that space where I've sort of been very tunnel focused, if you will, in a relationship. I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on that one person too, right? That they have to be your all everything in that moment. Whereas if you have these rich relationships with your girlfriends or other friends, that takes a little bit of the burden off. For sure.
And I will say, meeting Eddie, I was 40 when I met him. And, so we both have a marriage under our belt at that point. And so I think you approach things differently. We always had a very healthy balance of that, always. He had, things he did with the guys and I did with the girls. And I just told him, this is girls' night out. I can't see you on Tuesday night. Fine. And there was never any tension there. And I think that's one of the reasons why we clicked. I mean, he had a full appreciation that I needed my people, and I had a full appreciation he needed his people. And we actually respected. I mean, I don't do hunting and fishing and all of that. He needed that space. That's where he thrived. And I enjoyed that he had it. So not judging your spouse's activities when they're not with you, but promoting the health of those. Also, this summer, I co-led a trip with 20 women to Scotland. It was a just fun opportunity. My co-leader has a lot of expertise about Scotland and said, Katrina, if you will do the United States part, I will do the Scotland part. I said, great. How many people? And she said, well, if we get 20, we can have a private coach. I'm like, I'll go after 20. So as I was recruiting these 20 women to go on this fun trip, random trip to Scotland, there were some that was like, oh, my husband and I have always wanted to do that trip. Or, oh, I don't know if I can leave my husband. And I found myself being a cheerleader saying, I want you to think about this because it is important that you take trips with your husband and check some things off the list. It is important that you take trips with your children and your grandchildren. But it is also important that you take trips with your girlfriends. And we had this wonderful trip. And during the trip, we talked at length with each other about how differently we travel with girlfriends than we travel with our own family members.
Interesting.
You can be very selfish. You don't have to worry about anyone's phone charger. Did they remember it? You don't have to say, no, what are you having? And worry about sharing your food with someone else. If you really want to go this way and shop, you don't compromise and go this way because a family member really wants to go look at the, outfitter's store or whatever. It's all important that you have those other experiences, but there's just nothing like traveling with girlfriends.
Yeah, it's so true. I just came back from a trip with some girlfriends and I was talking to somebody afterwards and I said, I sort of felt bad because we didn't go to a single museum, but nobody seemed to miss it. They seemed to be all good at that.
Yeah, so you can just really be you and not worry about necessarily what the others want to do. But it's important that you have those experiences. So again, girlfriends have just been a theme for my whole life. Their faces have changed, but they are there to let me be me and let them be them and learn. All of us women are going to have these like experiences. We're going to be moms. We may have trouble with our children. We may not understand school life. We're going to be balancing work. At some point, we may be widows, and just having those like experiences to lean on is just life-giving.
Yeah, I love that. Now, I'm curious about your faith. So you relied on your friends and your faith. What did that look like?
I have always been Christian, and I've always had a relationship with God, but I've never felt closer to Him than I did in those quiet moments of the hospital when Eddie was so serious. And I won't say it's the first time in my life, but it was a monumental time in my life when I truly felt God hugging me. I was totally out of control. I had no answers. I had no way to fix this problem. The sun was going to come up, and I knew it was a new day, and I just really felt His presence. And there was a quote one time that says, I don't worry about the future because I know the author. And I just really felt that. And so I just gave over the worry and just really leaned into, and at Eddie's service, when some of the hymns we were singing about life everlasting, if you really believe, and I do, that heaven awaits those that believe, then I have to be happy for where He is now. And I have to believe that the streams that He's fishing in are unlike and more colorful and beautiful than anything He ever saw here on earth.
Wow.
And I have to believe that we'll be reunited again in a different form somehow. And I can be patient for that. So that's what it looked for me.
I love that.
And how did your friends show up for you at that time? So that's how your faith showed up for you. How did your friends show up for you?
Oh gosh. And just, you don't have enough time. Friends show up in ways that you need but don't know how to articulate. What I did not need, in the South, we bring food. And I did not need, it was just my best friend and I, my son coming and going. I did not need a lot of food. And they knew that. They knew that what I needed was to honor Eddie with a special service and then some time with them. But I didn't even articulate all of that. They just knew. And I think one thing that was super special, looking back on it, was I turned 60 about 6 weeks after Eddie passed. And being 60 was not really, I wasn't dreading it. It was, I was denying it, if anything. I wasn't really something. It just wasn't a thing. And when I turned 60, a girlfriend told me she wanted to have a dinner party at her house, and I kind of was reluctant about it, but I was like, okay. And I had imagined, and the control part of me had thought this was going to look like 5 or 6 couples that I was close to and had a long history with, and we'd have a nice dinner party at her house. And so when I went and opened the door, there were like 60 girlfriends from all walks of life. And it was this girly party and favorite foods and all of these people that how did they even know one another? And it just filled my cup so much. And I'm not the girl that wants the surprise party, but just being with those people at that time in my life just really filled my cup up. And then the next morning, 7 of those women surprised me and took me to New York for the rest of the weekend. And we just had a extra luxurious, special bucket list kind of New York experience. So I will always just cherish that they loved me enough to do all of the planning, keep all the secrets, but just know that intuitively I just needed some hugs and some smiles and some time. And it really helped to kind of close a chapter of intensity of a sickness and begin a chapter of, okay, life's moving forward and I've got these folks in my corner and, it's not what I asked for, it's not what I prescribed, but I can do this.
So what is the next chapter?
I don't know my future, but I know the author.
Right.
So it's hard to predict, but right now it feels like just leaning into guided giving. Again, I think I would have retired or been looking at it had Eddie, but I think I will continue because I'm feeling a lot of fulfillment from it. I'm not a grandmother yet, so I don't have grandbabies to rock. So I love making a difference. So I'm going to pour more into the donor side and helping people be strategic about giving away their wealth. That feels really exciting to me. So I want to perhaps grow that and just help people make a difference. And I want to travel more. And I want to be very intentional about relationships, and including you two ladies.
Oh, that's so sweet. So Katrina, if you're looking back, there's a couple questions we'd like to ask. So if you were looking back at the 20-year-old, like, you're in college, you're considering graduating early, probably induced by that relationship. What advice would you give to that girl today?
You don't have to worry about getting it exactly right. The pivots are going to be there, and just be prepared to pivot and know that you'll be successful with the pivots. Don't feel like you have to have it all figured out.
You don't have to have it all figured out. You can't predict, right? Because we're not the authors.
But I was mature for my age, at least I thought I was. I thought I had it all figured out. I had my plan and went about the plan. And so the devastation when the plan doesn't happen is something that I'm glad that I got through. But I think we should avoid devastation. I think we should be prepared that life as we see it is likely not going to go that way. And it's okay not to have it all figured out at 20. It's okay.
Awesome. And what do you think a committed group of women could achieve in a year if they put their minds to it? And what would be something that you would want to lead that group of women to achieve?
Helping them with their generosity identity and We are a generous species. We are givers and we are doers, but channeling that and taking intention to impact brings me joy. So helping a group of women become very strategic and focused about an area of philanthropy or generosity is how we change the world.
Is there an area that means the most to you? I mean, I know you work in all these different areas, and maybe it's like, maybe you're agnostic in terms of like the giving. You're not agnostic in your life, but in terms of like what means the most to you, like you can see all these different places that need help, but is there one that, you know, if you had the ability to choose that you would pick for some reason?
I am agnostic when I'm working with everyone else because I have an appreciation for all of the nonprofits. My personal giving identity is I give where I'm personally involved.
Yeah.
So I personally care about leadership development
Yeah. That's
of
great.
all ages, youth, so growing leaders so that they can hopefully pass on traits of success and generosity to others.
That's amazing. Well, you
It's wonderful.
you ooze generosity, and I can
Yeah.
see you have such a positive outlook on life, and it's infectious because just even these past couple of days with you have lifted me up. Just I'm telling you that now, and I've needed you in ways that that I didn't even know that I needed you. I think that you came here on this weekend for, in my life we've had a lot of talks and things that I've needed to hear. And I just thank you. Outside of this little forum here, it has been so wonderful to spend time with you, Katrina. And thank you so much for coming on Spark Me. And I have certainly been sparked. All right. I love when it sparks us.
I know. This was and thank you for being so honest and sharing. I mean, both the joys and some of the lows too in your life. Very inspirational. Thank you so much.
But always bouncing back to joy.
Mhm.
And that's what I feel from you. And that's joy and generosity is what I see when I look at you, and you're just great outlook at the world. And we need that. I think the world needs that. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
It was such a pleasure for us too.
Girlfriends forever.
Forever.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.